Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another interesting economic capsule on the Puerto Rico economy. Don't forget, those of you who like our economic capsules, to give us a like in YouTube and to look us up in YouTube under the voice of Heidie Calero. Today we have a fascinating topic, which is really an indictment on economic growth, never mind economic development of Puerto Rico. And it's really our dependence, our growing dependence. It's like an addict on federal funds. And unfortunately, it's like poverty. The more you give people and allow them, that allows them to still remain in poverty. I think Puerto Rico has been using those federal funds in a fashion that has not really been important in terms of changing the course of our recession, changing the course of economic growth. So let's look at this first graph. It's the share of federal funds as a percentage of GNP. This is all in nominal terms. The columns are the amount of money in $1 billion that have come to Puerto Rico. This is $26.4 billion in 2020, the last fiscal year of the official national accounts published by the Puerto Rico Planning Board in this month. And in 2006, just the year before the recession, Puerto Rico was receiving $10 billion. So in about 14 years, we have more than doubled that contribution of federal funds to Puerto Rico, and the contribution to GNP, 17% in 2006, and now it's 38%. Notice during the past years, 2006 through 2020, we have received this huge, walloping $273 billion in federal funds, and GNP grew in nominal terms $998 billion. So that accounts for almost 27% of that growth in GNP was due to external federal funds, which Puerto Rico has no control of. It depends on Congress, and it depends on the graciousness of the president in the White House. If it was like President Trump, who didn't like Puerto Rico when we had the Hurricane Maria in 2017, well, all those funds were, even though assigned by Congress, they were not dispersed in Puerto Rico. Now with President Biden, you can see more of that. But at any rate, it's this humongous current of monies that you ask, well, where are those funds? Why our roads are so bad? Why is the electricity in such shambles? Our infrastructure in terms of water. What is happening that we have so much poverty still in Puerto Rico? And we are really very lucky compared to the rest of the Caribbean or other countries in Latin America that do not have this current of force of money, federal funds. Let's look at this second graph, which is this counter-cyclical pattern of federal funds. And the blue line is the growth of all those federal funds that we talked about in the first graph. We eliminated the impact of inflation by taking some of the implicit deflators that the Puerto Rico Planning Board uses to deflate GNP, consumption, government, investment, and so on. So we used some of those deflators to represent here. This is the federal funds in real terms. It's the blue line. In 2020, it was negative 14% in terms of these federal funds, which fell. But in 2000 and more or less Hurricane Maria, notice this increase of almost 10%, whereas the GNP growth in real terms, whereas our economy fell, it went down, negative 3.2%. We had that cushion of 10% growth in terms of those federal funds. It was the same thing in the 1975 recession. The Puerto Rico economy went down negative 1.8% in terms of real GNP growth, and notice the increase in federal funds of almost 60%. That was the year of the food stamp program, which really pushed Puerto Rico out of recession in just 1 year. Well, we have not been so lucky with a great recession, even though we've had negative growth, negative 1.7% in terms of GNP growth. The federal funds have been almost 61% growth. So this is what we call a negative counter-cyclical pattern. If we correlate these two patterns of growth, especially 2007 through 2020, during this recession in Puerto Rico, it's negative 48%. If it had been negative 100%, it was a perfect correlation. These two statistical series would be moving in tandem. But it's a pretty good correlation, almost 50%, and it's negative, which means that when Puerto Rico's economic growth is negative, then we get the influx of federal funds. And that has been aided by recessions, by hurricanes, by COVID-19, all these, the Great Recession, all these aids that have also benefited Puerto Rico. Let's look then at what Puerto Rico receives in terms of all these federal funds, just so that you have an idea of, this is in millions of dollars and current prices. It's $30.7 billion. That consists of those funds that come directly to people, individuals, as well as those that come directly to the Commonwealth government in terms of those grants that the government of Puerto Rico does not pay. And, there is more of an influence here of the federal government, of the U.S. Economy, but let's focus only on this huge current of federal funds. So in 2020, $30.7 billion. In 2006, just before the recession hit Puerto Rico, it was $13.8 billion. So almost a 60 to 65% increase in less than maybe 14 years. And notice this orange segment here, which is a negative, to show receipts are in positive territory and the payments that Puerto Rico makes, because after all, we pay for Social Security, we pay for Medicare, we pay for unemployment insurance. Well, all those payments are here reflected, but notice then that we paid $4.3 billion, but we received $30.7 billion. So Puerto Rico receives more than what it pays. And just to summarize, this huge dependence, which is an indictment on our economic growth, is the dependence on government. Those are what the net recurrent revenues Puerto Rico central government receives as grants for the Commonwealth government as a percentage of the net recurrent revenues, the ones that pay for supposedly many of our essential services. Well, in 2020, they accounted for 56%. How can a government really rely on funds that they no longer control? And is this bubble going to last? Not on your life. The second is consumer. This almost red line that you see here. Well, these are the transfer payments that individuals receive as a percentage of consumption. Again, all in monetary terms. And that accounts for 35%, a third of what we consume in durable, non-durable, and even services are really funded by federal funds. And then this, the blue line, the cyan blue that we see here, this is GNP growth. This is the growth in terms of GNP in real terms and the growth of federal funds in real terms. Divide one by the other, what's the share? 38%, again, federal funds. So this dependence on federal funds, though it might look as a great idea, then it gives you a pause for food for thought. Is the Puerto Rico strategy, economic strategy, going to rely almost exclusively on federal funds, which Puerto Rico does not control? They are in the hands of Congress. Congress gives and Congress takes away, or even on the bounty or the generosity of the President of the United States. I think we've come a long way since 1950, and we should go back to our grassroots. There must be another economic plan, that we are not going to be just reliant on federal funds. Until the next capsule, stay safe. Thank you.